Hey guys, Shama here, back for another week of Retailing Weekly. Super excited about this week, almost because it's really just the end of the year, which is so exciting. It's been an amazing year in retail. It's been such a crazy, insane year for a lot of retailers, and certainly for you guys who've been keeping your eye on the retail pulse. You've been noting a lot of changes have been happening. This past holiday, I was here in sunny and cold San Francisco, but was able to walk through a lot of different stores and see a lot of great observations that I think not only included in today's weekly roundup will also help us start to think about and prepare for next year. Now, the one thing that's really been on my mind is quite simply how many brick and mortar stores have been launched by original direct-to-consumer online storefronts. And what I mean by that is really looking at companies like Amor Vert, looking at companies like Outdoor Voices. Of course, I always mention Everlane, Warby Parker, Gemmy, the list goes on. But guys, more and more brick and mortar stores are popping up with these really specific e-commerce companies, and they're doing a great job. In fact, I got this t-shirt from Amor Vert when I walked over there in Hayes Valley the other day. Was really pleased by the assortment, how they're doing merchandising. If you head on over to the Scaling Retail blog, we'll be posting an article about merchandising and how some of these stores are really taking more innovative steps towards creating better retail shopping experiences. But interesting stuff coming up today. We'll be talking a little bit about some updates around Nike. We'll be talking about fashion and politics, and we'll also be talking about what's on the horizon for next year. So lots of fun and exciting things. Let us get started. Okay. So one of the things that I think is so fascinating is really the way in which fashion contributed to the political conversation this year. Now, obviously, we heard tons of designers who were just saying no about what they were going to dress Melania Trump and, how they were going to be engaging in that political conversation. But what I thought was so great was so many different fashion brands were actually pushing boundaries in terms of their increased accountability. Now, this recent Fashionista article that was from the 12th really outlined the different ways in which fashion is becoming a little bit more political. And I don't just mean in terms of saying, hey, we stand up against fur, which is something that Gucci's been doing, Michael Kors is doing, and lots of other brands are following suit. But they're also standing up for things like women's rights. They're standing up for the politics that they believe in. And one of the things that I think is so fascinating is that these brands are becoming more and more vocal about what they stand for and what they believe. For an example, one of our brands, Sugar High Lovestone, is so vocal about what they think about politics, and it's really a part of their brand identity. Now, what I think is so fascinating is that certainly if it's not within your brand identity, you're not going to go ahead and get political. But consumers these days are really looking for a more politicized perspective. They want to know what you stand for. They want to know where their dollars are going, and they want to know that you actually are invested in what they believe in. And so fashion, I would say for 2017, definitely played a huge part in the women's rights movements as far as, the protesting and all of the kind of activations. Fashion also played a very big role when it came to things like environmental justice, certainly animal rights. It's fantastic to see different fashion companies coming together to even stand in solidarity with movements like Black Lives Matter. And so when we think about fashion historically, I remember back in high school writing a paper about how shortening hemlines back in the 60s and 70s, really came hand in hand with a lot of political progress and movements in terms of women's liberation. And what I think is great is fashion is truly on the ground, right? Fashion is something that is reflective of the movement and of the time. And right now, I think it's amazing to see fashion companies once again taking a stand for something, being bold. And certainly, guys, I think that we'll see those brands that do rise up and take a stand, whatever the stand is, right? Whatever it is they want to be pushing forward, no matter if it's taboo or not. Those are the brands that are going to have the most connection with their customers. And going into 2018, 2019, guys, it's really about connection, right? It's really going to be about how you can align yourself with today's values and with what customers are looking for. And if you take a look at any of the different kinds of reporting that are out there in terms of where customers are heading, you'll see they're looking for more individualization. They're looking for brands who speak their language, and they're not ready for that BS anymore, right? They don't want it. They don't want to just go somewhere where they can find everything in a box, right? They want to be able to go somewhere where they identify with the brands that they are purchasing. And guess what, guys? They will spend the money on the brands that they feel most akin to. Now, last week we talked a little bit about how Amazon and Nike were partnering up, and Nike was trying to really take back some of its sales by going on Amazon, right? They wanted to really bring that back and say, hey, all these third-party sellers on Amazon, we're going to come in here, we're going to be pay to play, we're going to make it happen. But guess what? Nike certainly saw some sales go down once they started investing in that Amazon channel. And guys, guess what? Nike is not over with their relationship with Amazon. They are expanding their relationship with Amazon. And Nike is also going to be partnering with company Stitch Fix. Now, if you guys are noticing or checking your phones lately, but since Stitch Fix IPO'd, they've actually been doing quite well in the market. They've been going a little bit more national with their advertising. They've been going for much bigger and larger strategic partnerships. Really, really flippin' amazing. Now, guys, you have to ask yourself, a partnership with Nike, well, what does that really look like? Right? What does a Nike partnership look like when it comes to partnering up with a company like a Stitch Fix, where everything is very much customizable? It's very much, within a particular person's profile and how they shop, right? Certainly not everyone is going to be a Nike customer. But what I think is really fascinating to think about here is if companies like Stitch Fix start to do these strategic partnerships on a much bigger scale, then you have to ask yourself, how is Stitch Fix going to be, persuaded to only be working with certain brands? How much of the buying decisions are really going to become based on what the merchandisers see as being really added value for the customer, right? So you have to ask yourself, at a certain point, partnerships are really a brand value, right? They're really helpful for companies. They're helpful for both parties, because with a good partnership, both parties are really getting what they need. And then in a bad partnership, guys, what you're finding is that these partner-led strategies tend to become more about the partnerships depending on how much they're paying, depending on what the partnership looks like, etc. So honestly, I think it's a really interesting foray to look into. I think that the merchandising team at Stitch Fix will have to remain strong. They'll have to remain, adherent to their current buying guidelines, etc., in order to really maintain that authenticity. If there are so many branded partnerships and it starts to see itself in terms of, advertising, it starts to seep its way into the Stitch Fix homes, then I'm going to say that we might have a little bit of customer backlash in terms of this great service, which aggregates lots of products, which is able to help you find these customized solutions to your wardrobe, then all of a sudden become prescriptions from brands that have bought in partnership. So that piece of our news was brought to you guys by Retail Dive. And I think it's, Retail Dive is one of those great channels that a lot of people don't really take a look at. It's very niche. It's very specific on what's happening behind the scenes in retail. But it's just one of the sources that we pull from internally when we're looking at what's happening around the news. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is really the tie-in between charities and activism this holiday season, and how a lot of different fashion brands are stepping up to that. So for example, guys, I don't know if you're familiar with the fires that happened in Los Angeles, but what was really amazing and great to see were a lot of fashion brands and retailers were coming together in order to do clothing drives, in order to donate dollars for every purchase that was done, in order to go back to helping, the supporting areas of Ojai, in order to help people from the fires in Ventura and San Diego counties. There are lots of different kinds of devastations, natural devastations that have been happening. And I think, again, it's great to see fashion brands come together. Another great organization is, Fashion Girls for Humanity. That was started by Tomoko and Julie Gilhard and some of the girls from Barney's, New York, my old stomping grounds. And what's great to see there, they haven't done anything in a little while. But again, another great opportunity to see how fashion brands can really activate and get together and stand for something that's really important. Certainly, as I mentioned, we have things like, Gucci and Michael Kors kind of saying no to fur, not saying no to leather, but saying no to fur. And what I'm hoping that we continue to see, guys, is a lot of this kind of activism that's coming out of the fashion movement. Now, another great thing that I would keep your eye on is Beyond the Label. So Los Angeles Beyond the Label, that was a really fun, interesting project that I spearheaded with one of my great girlfriends, Taryn Hipwell, and we kind of, Robin, and we got together and we said, hey, let's think about how this could be a great, impactful presence. And Taryn really ran with it, and now LA Beyond the Label is really kind of a national footprint, and it's really there to educate people on sustainability. They had a fantastic presentation over at TEDx in Los Angeles, and now it's kind of taking on a larger movement and larger meaning. And so what I think is interesting to think about in that respect is, as a industry player, as someone who knows around the holidays, it's good to have charitable giving, something you guys hopefully all did because it's great for tax write-offs. Some of you guys might be concerned or worried about what's happening to your taxes in 2018, but you guys do have a few more days to do some of that charitable giving on behalf of your business in order to take advantage of some of these, itemized deductions, which may no longer be options for you depending on the kinds of businesses that you run come 2018. But I would say, guys, this is definitely a great time of year to ask yourself, we have a few days left in the year. Where can you make a stand? Where can you donate your dollars? Where can you donate your time? And how can you really help to set up the society and humanity for a kick-ass 2018? We used to say in the industry that greenwashing, which is really the act of, saying that you're sustainable, saying that you're green, not really being either of those things, just, putting on the packaging that, you too believe in the environment, is something that is really a lot of hype, right? It's one of those things where if someone's greenwashing, you can tell, right? And when you can tell, you're like, oh, that's a phony company, right? It's something I can't really get in or I can't really get behind. And so it's important to really mean what you say. At the Scaling Retail Agency, we had a client the other day who was, interested in going down the sustainable route. And I said, hey, that's amazing, but you've really got to understand what it means to stand behind something like that for your business. Meaning, if you believe in things like vegan, right, or being vegan and not eating animal products, then does that mean that you believe in PVC and using plastics, right? Are you pro-environment? Are you pro-people? Are you, pro-animals? So it's really important, guys, as you think about the ways in which you contribute and give back, you're not just thinking about it in terms of sustainability, right, which is an environmental way of giving back, but in all the other kinds of organizations and ways that you can, and all the different places that could really use your help in the coming years and coming months. All right, guys, that is all from me today for Retailing Weekly. We'll be back next year kind of talking a little bit about what's happening and what's new for 2018. As always, guys, it's such a pleasure to be able to talk to you guys about retail trends, what we're seeing, what we think is really interesting and happening. Definitely, guys, from what we've been hearing, what we've been seeing on the ground, retail did well this Christmas. So if you were part of the group, brush your shoulders off. Congratulations. I think it's been really exciting. Next year, I think for a lot of our brands and clients that we're working with, it's about creating that customer connection and really making better marketing and product choices, right? Product choices, meaning product development choices. Are you creating the right products for that customer? And really starting to understand and do that kind of analysis to make sure that, guys, the products and the environments and the shopping experiences you create aren't just because they're based on a set of theories of best practices that were used 20 or 30 years ago. Times are changing, right? And it's time for us to be able to really evolve our retail strategies for the consumer of next year. All right, guys, I will talk to you later. Have a fantastic new year. Bye.